Today we are discussing values, ethics and corporate social responsibilities. Under this module, we will have 4 lectures on work values, ethics and corporate social responsibilities. So, I introduce to you the concept of values and ethics in organizations today, and we will cover the issues related to values in organizations. We will try to define values and look at various types of values, various classifications which various authors have given, and the ethics in organizations. So, we talk about values now, and if there are any questions, please feel free to ask anything, any clarifications. Values play a significant role in the functioning of organizations, providing a basis for the design of effective human organizations, and overall organizational performance is affected by values. So, role of values in organizations, if we see, we find that in the recent years management thinkers have started emphasizing on the concept of values and the value based practices in organizations. This is due to the realization that values are core motivating, guiding variables in human behavior, hence in organizations. Values operate at various levels, mainly at 2 levels: at the level of organizations and at the level of persons. So, the organizational values and personal values. And when we are looking at organizational performance, it results into a combination of personal values, organizational values, which will result into what kind of a performance, overall performance the organization is in a position to give. We will discuss some of these issues in today's lecture. Organizational values, those are the values written in the charter of the organization or the value statement of the organization, and values become the core competencies for the organization when they are widely shared by the members of the organization. Core competency, the term we have introduced already when we were discussing the training and development. We were talking about competency mapping at that time. So, values are important in terms of core competency as well. Personal values play important role in guiding one's behavior. So, your behavior is also very much important, and at personal value level, it is believed that we are trying to talk about high esteem, we are talking about the motivation of people. So, the belief that people will perform better because of values, these are some of the aspects when we are looking at the personal values in organizations. In organizations, some ways by which personal values play a role. And there are a number of ways, but some of the ways which we are going to discuss today are the personal value systems influencing the manager's perceptions of situations and the problems which he or she faces. So, these personal values are also manager's values, the managerial values, and which are getting reflected into his managing style. Personal value systems also influence a manager's decision and solutions to problems. So, you as a manager, you have certain values and your decisions get affected also in turn by that. Is it true? Think it over. If you have never thought about it, think it over. Personal value system thus influences the interpersonal relations too among the members of the organization, managers of the organization, and the practices of professed values would also influence the climate of the organization, overall organizational climate. Institutionalization of values would result in improved ethical practices in organization, which would then enhance the organizational climate. So, you can see a linkage between values, the ethical organizational climate, the ethical practices, and perhaps the overall organization climate culture, which will lead to performance. And as students of management, we are interested in knowing how best my organization can perform. In today's discussion, we are trying to make a case that values are important parameters in making your organization function very effectively. So, once again, the role of values in organization here I have tried to emphasize that in a number of studies which we have conducted out here in IIT Delhi, these also reveal that values have become extremely important in today's context. And one study we had conducted with the Navratna companies. Do you understand Navratna companies in India? Navratna. Yes, we have the public sector undertakings which who have been given this we can say status, Navratna companies. So, we had taken the Navratna companies and we found that they had very clear value and mission statements. So, they are aware of it and they are wanting to practice taking these concepts. So, organizational values may be stated in the form of a value statement, a code of ethics, or a vision statement. In all these, we have reflection of values, and most of the organizations you will find they do have some kind of a formal statement. Some of the ways in which beliefs and values can be imbibed in the organizational culture are by the ethical practices of the leaders that relate to the values prevalent in the organization and the strategies, goals, policies, procedures, and incorporating these values in day-to-day life. Is it becoming clearer to us that values, each one of you will have some values, your manager will have some values, the corporate leaders will have some values which will create a work climate and which in turn will motivate people. to perform better. So, personal values interact with organizational values, and this interaction, this interactive system we can say, will be influencing the choices at work and will lead to job performance. This is what we were trying to discuss so far. And so, the alignment of personal and organizational values influence job satisfaction, turnover, intentions and organizational commitment of employees. We have seen in some of our earlier parts of the course that these are some of the parameters which we are looking for as a result of effective management practices, because that will give us sustainability, that will give us long term effectiveness. These are some of the things we are looking for. Yes. Values then can be understood as the core competency of an organization and imbibing culture as the vehicle of leading sustainable competitive advantage. That I said just now, I am repeating that. So, here let me mention Peter and Waterman. In their book they have, I am sure some of you have gone through a book called In Search of Excellence. Have you had the opportunity of going through a book called In Search of Excellence, where these authors, they conducted studies to find out the role of values in the effective functioning of organizations. So, they have said that values become core competency of an organization when they are widely shared by the members. At the second level, these personal values play important role in guiding the person's behavior. So, according to Encyclopedia of Psychology, values are what individuals consider as good or beneficial to their well-being. Yes. So, we are talking about the dictionary meaning of values. Yes, which is not very much different than what we are actually discussing. In organizations, some ways by which personal values play a role in the functioning are personal systems that the personal systems influence managers' perception of situations and problems which he or she faces. I have already said that. Personal value systems influence managers' decisions or solutions to the problems. Personal value system influence the interpersonal relations among the managers of the organizations. I am repeating some of these points. So, according to Ahmed, values are the core competencies of the organization. Whereas, when we are looking at some other explanations, you will find that Chapman gives interactional model to see that person organization fit in terms of values become important, and this is a fundamental and enduring aspect of both organizations and people. Can you see the organization person fit? Can you visualize that? Woodall and Winsterley have emphasized that besides focusing on the strategic fit and best practices models in human resource management, it is also essential for human resource to focus on employees' well-beings and the ethical treatment. Patnaik has developed the notion of HRD climate as the human environment within which an organization's employees perform their jobs. Yes, Professor Patnaik, one of the professors, IIMs, yes. In his discussion of factors influencing the HRD climate in organizations, he states that values, norms, ethical codes, etc. are prevalent in the organizations, and they in turn influence the employees' perception of the climate, the work climate. Yes. So, values lead to work culture, or in other words we can say values are part of the organizational culture and work culture. So, I put that caption to emphasize on this point, and let us see the cultural aspect. Professor Sinha, again one of the leading professors who has worked in this area, has studied work culture in different types of organizations in India, and two distinct types of work cultures he has identified: the soft work culture and synergetic work culture. He is suggesting that these work cultures actually are reflecting certain kinds of values. The PSUs you understand, public sector units, having a soft work culture are generally having a soft work culture according to professor, while the private sectors have the synergetic work culture. Soft work culture signifies a culture that gives greater importance to social obligation, and work has secondary place in that. Yes. Sheen, one of the leading authors, he has written many books in this in the field of organizations, organizational psychology. He perceives culture in different ways, emphasizing different levels, and which are based on certain basic assumptions, values, and artifacts and creations. So this analysis will once again we'll be discussing in the later part. I'll discuss the levels. I'm just coming to that. But before that, let me discuss the other authors. Say Deal and Kennedy, for example, they perceive culture of an organization comprising of 5 elements, and these elements are the business environment, values, heroes, rights, and the rituals, and the work culture, and the cultural network, which so all these will comprise the whole the overall the work culture of an organization. So you can see that values are important aspects of that. So values are the basic concepts and beliefs of an organization, forming the heart of the corporate culture. So values are the heart of the corporate culture. How important they are. Yes, even though they may look so intangible in many sense, but they are extremely important and heart of the corporate culture. And so the strong culture companies have rich and complex system of values shared by their employees. Once again, Sheen, I was just talking to you about Professor Sheen's explanations. Once again, I'm discussing that. Sheen defines organizational culture as a pattern of basic assumptions invented, discovered or developed by a given group of the organization as it learns to cope with the internal problems of external adaptation and internal integration. Yes, integral the integral part of this adaptation is the internal and external factors. Okay. So, we integrate all this in the process of adaptation. He has talked about, as we discussed also a little bit ago, we were discussing about the assumptions and values and the other factors. At the level 1, he has talked about the artifacts which are most visible level of the culture, consisting of the some physical and the social environment. So, what we can do, that we can draw some kind of a model in which you have an external factor in between and the internal factor. So, he has talked about the at the level 1 as the as these factors. Physical space, the technological output of the organization or a group, its written and spoken language, artistic we can say productions, and the overt behavior of the group members. All these constitute, this part of organizational culture. At level 2, this comprises of the values to analyze why group members believe in a certain way. Is it essential to look for the values which govern their behavior? So, at the second level we are talking about values which constitute the culture. So, a set of values actually become important and embodied in an ideology or organizational philosophy, and thus this serves as a guide and as a way of dealing with the uncertainty of intrinsically uncontrollable or difficult events. Is it, should I repeat that? Or you can look at that. Perhaps if there are any questions, I will answer. Yes. Since these values are not based on the prior cultural learning, we can say, they have been called the espoused values. Espoused values. Yes. And at the third level, Sheen is talking about the basic underlying assumptions for values, which will refer to that values are typically unconscious, but actually determine how group members perceive, think and feel. Then other authors, for example, Trompers, he explains culture in the layers like an onion. You must have seen an onion. Yes, vegetable, and that has many layers. So, just now I was suggesting to you that you could draw a model, but here there is a very good analogy, and the outer layer of the culture, this comprises of the explicit products. Okay, can you visualize an onion, and this has many layers. Okay, you can peel out different layers. So, the outer layer, okay, and culture is like that, it has many layers. Yes, explicit culture is observable reality of language, food, buildings, houses, monuments, art, etc. When we are talking broadly, when we are talking about a culture, okay, these are symbols of deeper level of culture. The middle layer consists of the norms and values. Yes, we'll talk about the Indian culture in short while from now, and at that time when someone comes to India, then sees the language, the building, and the other monuments and everything. That's part of our cultural heritage, we say, okay. But then he also looks at the Indian people, the values in between. So the middle level is the culture, India's culture in terms of values. And the explicit layer, this reflects these norms and values of individual groups. We will come to Hofstede's explanation, and I will give an idea about Indian collectivistic values. Yes, we will come to that. So, values on the other hand determine the definition of good and bad, and are therefore closely related to the ideals shared by a group. A culture is relatively stable when the norms reflect the values of the group. So, we can say that within the culture you have values, and at times it becomes so difficult for us to really say that how these deeply embedded concepts, okay, it's so difficult sometimes to say that okay, this is here values end and culture begins or something of that kind, because they are deeply embedded into each other, and so are the organizational values. Yes, Johnson and Scholz, they perceive the paradigm as a cultural web. Yes, this comprises of the rituals and routines, stories, symbols, power structure, organizational control system, and all these related aspects. Yes, are you understanding? We are at the moment trying to understand what are the issues of organizational culture, but we are trying to understand values and culture in the wider sense, okay, in the social sense, okay, because these all reflect the organizational behavior, because after all we come from the same social system to work. So, organizational culture also gets reflected or affected by these values. Symbols such as logos, titles, etc. of many types of language and terminology commonly used all reflect the nature of the organization. So, from the culture value to the organizational values we are talking about, because this has an impact on overall functioning of the organization. The power structures are important formulating factors which affect the culture of an organization. Yes. In the recent years, management thinkers have started emphasizing on the role of values in management in many ways. And a value is a belief regarding something which is held in high esteem and which serves and motivates behavior of people in organizations. Values have much in common with secondary needs. Would you Yes, do you recollect that we had talked about the needs motivating human behavior in one of the earlier discussions? Yes. So, when we are looking at values, we are understanding that they are common, they could be considered as common with secondary needs. They are learned, they are not always conscious, values could also be unconscious, and they motivate behavior. So, you can see that values are there in the minds of people. Yes, and organizations also help us in developing our own values. Yes, values are rarely isolated, and they tend to occur in the clusters or patterns which are called the value systems. So, we have many types of values and which will make this value system what we are talking about. Values are generally consistent with one's own needs and self concept as proposed by Lewis and Peterson. You understand the word self concept, we have discussed that in some of the earlier sections. Yes, your self image, when you are looking at yourself in the mirror of society. Yes. So, values are consistent with that. Yes. Values are the links between needs and actions, serving in allocation of attention and efforts to various needs. They also form the basis for emotions of people, and values exist at different levels, ranging from very abstract values to concrete values. Yes, do you understand the abstract values and concrete values? There are values like the economic values or something of that kind, or you talk about values like being very brave. Okay. So, these are both are values, but of different types. Moral values being most fundamental, because we are also going to talk about further on this issue, and moral values become very important for organizations. So, being most fundamental could be at one end, and at more concrete level the values may involve on the other hand may involve the taste for food and clothing and music and etc. And people are not necessarily very conscious about their values, and some may held unconscious values, and they may even conflict with their conscious values. This is by some of the researchers. Yes, as I said that we are giving the list of references at the end, and if you want to know more about it, perhaps you could look for these references. Yes. Pepper, he has used the term values, where he refers to values as the interests, as pleasures, likes, preferences, duties, moral obligations, desires, wants, needs, aversions and attractions, and many other of course modalities of the selective orientation. So, there are many types of values, and it is not one thing, it is many things, many types. Values that have moral or ethical connotation are usually derived directly or indirectly from beliefs and practices. Yes, in fact, many of these values we learn from our families and from our childhood, from our kindergarten days. Yes. So, organizations have to see that how best they can utilize your values and how best they can develop your values. Originally, the rightness or wrongness of a behavior was judged by its survival values. Yes. As men have become more civilized and complex, the concept of good and bad, these have become more symbolically connected with survival. Yes. So, values vary from culture to culture, from time to time, and from time to time within the same culture. Even though values within an individual may be relatively stable, but they may also change because of certain environmental we can say influences or cultural factors. Yes. Once values have developed within an individual, however, they are relatively stable and resistant to change. They are resistant. There is a great resistance to change. If you think something is good, perhaps you will think many times before changing your values. Yes. So, because values are relatively stable. This is particularly true of those values which are learned early in life and as are related to one's own self concept, continuing personality structure in terms of conscious and superego. Perhaps I am going a bit on the psychology side. I won't take much time discussing the issue of superego and other things now because then we will not be able to complete what we want to discuss, and that is part of knowledge in psychology. So, I am not getting too much into that, even though values are also related to psychology as a discipline, but I am not getting into that discussion right now. So, these are as we are seeing and we have discussed that values are imbibed in the individuals in the early phase of their life, and they are quite stable. We have discussed yes. So, there are different types of values, and many researchers and authors they have proposed different types of values. Now, I will give you some types of values which impinge on our behavior at the place of work, and as managers you have to see that if a person is doing well or if not doing well, what is the reason? Perhaps there is something in his mind which may be because of his values, and so we have to see what strategy we have to devise for making him a better employee or giving him the opportunity of development and so on. So, let us see how different researchers and thinkers they have given us various types of values. Let me just begin with the idea of the models which are related to the social factors, personality related factors, cultural factors, and there are many authors, they have taken up the different classifications based on the model. Okay. Some of the model, they state that the social and the individual action occurs within the three interdependent systems, and these interdependent systems, so the different classifications you will find. The social system has three basic characteristics, and where there is interaction between two or more actors and others who are in the object of catharsis or alters, and the actors behave in concern with the function of the collective goal orientation. Yes. The personality consists of several characteristics like actors' needs, goals, actions, and the individual. The cultural system comprises of an organization of values, norms, and symbols that guide the choices made by actors and direct their interaction. These three basic factors we were discussing, and here are the explanations for that, and these make impact. So, the model is the value orientation component of the actor's orientation and commitment to particular norms, standards, and criteria of behavior. There are 5 fundamental types of value orientations or patterns of variables which define, and the categories which define culture, and the categories are as I am discussing now: affective versus affective, which refers to the extent it is accessible to experience immediate gratification; self versus collective orientation, which refers to an individual's pursuit of self versus collective interest; universalism versus particularization, which refers to the role of general rules guiding actions; ascription versus achievement, which refers to how an individual is judged in the society; specificity versus diffusion, which refers to the degree to which relations among actors and objects are limited. So, these were some of the classifications and the aspects various authors have looked into, and which form the basis for the analysis for values in general and values in organizations. Now, we will move on to talk about Hofstede's classification of value system. Hofstede, the management thinker, he has conducted many studies, in fact all over the globe, and he has found that managers differed in 4 dimensions as a result of their national culture. Yes, and the factors that Hofstede he emphasized are power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism and collectivism, masculinity versus femininity. In terms of values, yes, we are talking about. And he conducted studies in many countries, and he found, I am talking about Hofstede's study, that there are cultures, for example, the countries which are not highly developed might have more collectivistic kind of a culture. Yes, like if we go to many parts, if an industry is there, in the rural India, you will find the kind of a culture, personal culture that they might have maybe collectivistic, but perhaps in a city like ours, there may be an individualistic culture. Yes, there may be so many types of cultures. Yes, Alport, Vernon, Lindsay, they have classified values in terms of certain concepts. In fact, the whole theory began after Spranger gave his classification as early as 1928 on the types of men. And Alport Vernon, they studied values, and interestingly, I have conducted some studies on the taking Alport Vernon Lindsay scale and looking at the performance of industrial workers in India. In fact, largely I had taken some of the Faridabad industries, and I was looking at that which type of theories will relate to the understanding of performance analysis. And one of that was that there is a relationship between values and performance of employees in the organizations. So, in this theory, they have given number of types of values. Say these are theoretical, economic, I think there is some error here, it is not integrity, aesthetic, social, power related, religious. These are some of the values they have talked about. Then Rokeach has also given different types of values, and Rokeach has developed a general model of values which defines values as an enduring belief that a specific mode of conduct or end state of existence is personality or socially preferable to an opposite or converse mode of conduct and the end state of existence. Yes, that is the way he has defined values, and he has talked about certain characteristics of values which could be derived as the values are enduring but malleable. Value is a belief that is prescriptive and forms the basis for judging the desirability of some means or goals. Values refer to a mode of conduct or an end state of existence, and he has given two types of values, instrumental and terminal. Instrumental and terminal. Can you translate that? There are certain behavior which are instrumental and there are certain behavior which are terminal. That means the end of that, and instrumental is which takes you to that. Okay, so the values which carry you forward in certain ways, and another value which is the goal, the end of the value. So let us see, instrumental values have further been perceived as the moral competence. Can you see now, instrumental values are the moral competence, and the terminal values are the personal and social values. Moral instrumental values mainly refer to modes of behavior. Example of this could be having honesty and do not correspond to a particular state. Competence particular state competence. I think this sentence should go there. Instrumental values refer to personal accomplishments and self-actualization. Some of these terms we have already discussed in our chapters on motivation and in the earlier part. Yes, that is why I am now repeating those. Personal and social values, which are terminal values, which refer to the self-centered states. So, highly ranked terminal values such as wisdom or salvation are end states of goals, and the individuals would like to achieve during his or her lifetime. So, do you understand now the instrumental and terminal values, the difference? So, Rokeach has tried to classify these in terms of that. Then instrumental values are behavior or means by which we can achieve the desired ends. Now, the other classification is given by Super and Neville, and their classification of values is giving us many values. Let us see, Super has defined values as the objectives that seek want to attain the and satisfy a particular need, and Super and Neville, they have given different types of values, and you can see the types of values they have classified as the ability, utilization, achievement, advancement, aesthetics, altruism, authority, autonomy, creativity, economic rewards, lifestyle, personal developmental values, physical activity, prestige, risk, social interaction, social relations, variety, working conditions, cultural identity, physical prowess, economic security. Yes, this is a long list, and you can see that various types of values are included there, and in fact their scale we have also used their measuring tool, and we have conducted a study also with the IT professionals. So, at the end of this lecture on values and ethics, if time permits, I will be sharing with you some of these studies in little bit details. I will talk to you about that, if not today, perhaps in my next lecture on values and ethics. Okay. So, you can see these lists, and then Sward and Sagiv, they have given motivational types of values, and they have defined values as the desirable goals varying in importance that serves as guiding principle in people's lives, and they give 10 types of values which are divided into different dimensions. The first dimension is openness to change versus conservation here, which opposes values emphasizing one's independent thoughts and action and favoring change to those emphasizing submissive and self-restrictive situation. Some of these. Second dimension is self-enhancement versus self-transcendence, and values emphasizing on acceptance of others for their welfare to those emphasizing pursuit of one's own dominance to others. And the 10 values are power, achievement, hedonism, stimulation, self-direction, universalism, benevolence, tradition, conformity, security. These are some of the values which they have emphasized. From here we move on to England and Lee, and they have given various assertions and the implications for studying the value system of managers. We will continue with England and Lee's discussion in our next lecture, and where we will talk about the value system suggested by them. So, in today's lecture we were trying to understand what are human values, how they are important as part of the culture, and how they are important as part of our organizational functioning and organizational culture, finally leading to the performance of the organization. So, in our next lecture we are going to continue with this discussion.